Support for Colorado Today comes from Safeway, where you can shop online and get easy delivery or free pickup. Get the same prices, deals, and rewards as in-store. Shop the weekly ad, clip deals, and earn points at Safeway.com or in the Safeway app.
Support for Colorado Today comes from Credit Union of Colorado. With access to over 30,000 ATMs and a mobile app, they're dedicated to offering the services of a big bank with a heart. Learn more at honestlygood.org.
Yesterday did turn out to be payday, at least for some. Members of the military, including maybe you here in Colorado, got paid yesterday despite the federal government shutdown, with funding coming from other parts of the Defense Department. Payment for the next military pay period, though, that's still uncertain, and other federal workers have not seen their scheduled paychecks. So, if your favorite park ranger looks a little down this week, well, maybe coffee's on you this time. I'm Arlo Perez Esquivel. Coming up, the latest on the Evergreen High School shooting, including the release of one of the victims from the hospital. Then, Colorado becomes the first state to crack down on prescription drug prices.
If you're uninsured and you're paying out of pocket for this medication, there's definitely going to be some savings.
But that is if the state ever actually gets to put this into effect. Plus, a local company supplies voting machines for a big chunk of the country. Now they have new owners, and that's raising concerns.
Is this a GOP takeover? Are elections going away? What's happening?
It's Thursday, October 16th. Here's the news in Colorado today. The older boy who was shot at Evergreen High School last month has finally been released from the hospital. 18-year-old Matthew Silverstone left Common Spirit St. Anthony Hospital on Tuesday. He was wheeled out on a stretcher with friends and family surrounding him, clapping, cheering, and carrying light blue balloons. In photos shared by Jefferson County Sheriff's Department, you can see Matthew smiling. As he was discharged, his family also released new details about what Matthew has been through. They revealed that when he was shot, his heart stopped twice, once at Evergreen and once in the ambulance on the way to the hospital. Now, they say, he can talk and he can walk with help. Silverstone's mom, Paige, said in a statement to the community, quote, "Your generosity has reminded us that we're not alone. Each act of kindness, each word of encouragement, each prayer has lifted Matthew and all of us." She also thanked people for believing in miracles and helping the family hold onto hope. The plan is for Matthew and the other student who was shot to continue their rehabilitation. That student has not been named publicly, but was released from the hospital a couple weeks ago. As for the investigation into the shooting itself, the Sheriff's Department said last week that it is hearing frustration from community members. The Sheriff's Office has tried to dispel what it calls rumors, concerns about warning signs, or law enforcement response on the day of the shooting. They also said that they still can't release information about how the 16-year-old suspect shooter got the gun. They're reminding the community that anyone in need of support can contact the Sheriff's Office's Victim Service Unit. Their email is victimservices@jeffco.us. This month, Colorado became the first state in the country to cap the price of a prescription drug, the arthritis medication Enbrel. Its costs had gone up 40% in the last 5 years, and insurers and some patients have been paying thousands of dollars a month for it. Meg Wingeter has been reporting for the Denver Post on the state's efforts to reduce the rising costs of drugs like this. Meg, thank you for being here.
Thanks for having me.
I want to start out by clarifying something. Drug manufacturers are private companies.
They are.
So how come a Colorado government can tell them what they can charge?
Well, I imagine we'll find out in the coming months if they can, because the drug makers are almost certainly going to sue and challenge this law and specifically the board's decision. But The way the law is set up, it doesn't exactly tell a drug maker, you must charge this. It says in Colorado, an insurer or a patient cannot pay more than this.
Tell me a little bit more about this law. I know that a board was set up a few years back to determine this. What do they do exactly?
Well, they were tasked with reviewing certain high-cost medications to determine are they affordable to the patients in Colorado. Because a drug that looks unaffordable on paper is not always unaffordable in the experience of people using it. For example, Trikafta, it's a cystic fibrosis drug, one of the 5 that they reviewed, costs about $26,000 a month.
Wow.
Yeah. But when they talked to patients or parents of patients, they determined that no one was paying anywhere close to that between the insurance coverage and patient assistant programs that the drug maker had, that it was not an unreasonable out-of-pocket cost. With some of the other drugs like Enbrel, they looked at it and, they were hearing from people who were having to make cuts in other parts of their lives or, skip doses, and determined between the high cost and what they were hearing from patient experience that it was not affordable.
You reported that the price of Enbrel will be capped at $600, which
Roughly.
You mentioned is less than what people without insurance are currently paying. I looked it up. It's $10,000, which is wow. So is this a win for patients?
If you're uninsured and you're paying out of pocket for this medication, there's definitely going to be some savings. If you just pay $40 for each prescription you pick up, no matter what the prescription costs, it doesn't make much difference to you at the pharmacy counter. You're still going to be paying your $40. If you have a different sort of insurance setup where you pay a percentage of the cost of your medication, then you might see that benefit. But of course, then there's the separate question of whether there are going to be any unintended consequences around access.
What would those be?
Well, the way the system is set up, there are these entities called pharmacy benefit managers that basically structure the drug benefit for your insurance. Put different drugs into different tiers that make some of them easier to access or less expensive.
Okay.
So if the price of a drug goes down, sometimes paradoxically, they don't want to steer patients toward that drug because they don't get as big a rebate from it.
Huh.
Now, there's also the question of what is Amgen going to do?
Amgen being?
The maker of Enbrel. They have made some rather generic statements about concerns about access. So that leaves the question, are they just saying, with pharmacy benefit managers, who knows what's going to happen? Or are they trying to hint we may not sell? Of course, it may not be that easy to just cut one state out of your distribution system. That may be more work and expense than it's worth for them. And you also could face some pretty significant public blowback there if you're refusing to sell people the medication that, that keeps their condition under control. So we're just going to have to wait and see how much is saber rattling and how much is something they're actually willing to do.
Yeah, and I'm guessing, as we talked about, the company may try to sue it to try and block it from taking effect.
That would most likely be the first step.
Now, is there a sense of what other drugs this board in Colorado will pursue while trying to bring down the costs?
They've got 2 others, Cosentyx and Stelara, that they determined were unaffordable that then are going to go through the second half of this process.
Meg Wingeter from the Denver Post, thank you so much for being here.
Thanks for having me.
The technology used to count your votes is now under new ownership. Most Colorado counties and a good chunk of the country get their election equipment from Dominion Voting Systems, a Denver-based company that has been at the center of lawsuits and stolen election conspiracy theories. But Dominion announced recently that it's been sold and renamed Liberty Vote. That came as a big surprise to some, and it also raised concerns about keeping the election system free from political influence. President Trump has falsely accused Dominion of rigging the 2020 election in favor of Biden.
Is this a GOP takeover, or is elections going away? Probably one of the biggest questions I've overall gotten is, are we going to continue to have elections?
Benta Birkeland has been covering Dominion for years and joins me now. Benta, that voice we just heard is Tiffany Lee. She's the clerk in La Plata County. Those questions she mentioned, those are ones she's been getting from voters since the news of the sale. Why are voters concerned?
She said she's heard from a few people because first this sale kind of came out of the blue, and the new owner, Scott Leindecker, is a Republican, and the website for his company, Liberty Vote, and the press release they used to unveil the sale used a lot of language familiar from the world of election conspiracies and MAGA priorities.
And what do you mean by language?
Well, it talks a lot about election integrity, which is something, of course, everybody wants. But this language has really been a term on the right to use to question the security of the existing election system. And the press release emphasizes that Liberty Vote is 100% American-owned. That was a conspiracy we saw about Dominion. The company was founded in Toronto, but Trump allies questioned the technology and linked it to the former president of Venezuela.
Wow.
Yeah. Also, Liberty Vote said it will be focused on making sure its equipment complies with President Trump's executive orders around election rules, which I'll add, Colorado already follows. We're a paper ballot state.
Okay, so is this a mega takeover of one of the country's main makers of voting equipment?
That's definitely not how clerks in the state are viewing this. The new CEO, Leindecker, he actually has a long track record in the election administration world. He was a former election official in St. Louis. He now is the CEO of a company called No Inc., and this company provides electronic poll books to a lot of states to help them keep track of their voter rolls, and it has very good reviews from election officials. He's already held a couple of meetings with Colorado clerks since the sale, and the things I've heard from people were pretty positive. I talked to Molly Fitzpatrick. She's the Democratic clerk in Boulder County, and she's also the former head of the County Clerks Association.
He reiterated that he is an elections person and he has a long track record of being involved in elections.
Fitzpatrick really wanted to emphasize that this sale does not change anything about how Colorado conducts elections. All the security measures and post-election audits, everything will keep happening as normal.
So it kind of sounds like Liberty Vote is trying to reassure people on the right, those who may believe President Trump's attacks on the election system. But at the same time, they're not really disrupting the technology that states are using.
That's what it looks like to me. You talked about 2020 election conspiracies earlier. There have been all sorts of lawsuits, audits, and investigations, and nothing has ever connected Dominion equipment to voter fraud. But the company has definitely become toxic on the right. One thing that is interesting is at the same time, some Democratic voters may be worried about this sale because it's under Republican control. Joe Oltmann, he's a Colorado-based right-wing podcaster, and he's been a big part of the attacks on Dominion. He's already going after the new company and its owner, claiming the owner's part of this cabal stealing American elections. He even said the new Republican owner isn't conservative.
Wow. It kind of sounds like the sale unnerved people on the left and the right.
Yes, it's definitely taken local election officials by surprise, but I do think a lot of them seem pretty comfortable with where things are headed. The office will still be in Denver. The company's going to keep the Dominion staff on the payroll. Counties say they really like working with those individuals. As for attacks from the MAGA right, as one Colorado election official quipped to me, if an election denier like Joe Oltmann is criticizing this new ownership, they must be doing something right.
Thank you, Benta, and congratulations on the Signal Award for your work on Purplish. Very well deserved.
Thanks so much, and thanks for having me.
Additional reporting for today's show came from Alejandro Alonso Galva. Thank you for listening to Colorado Today, and remember to follow us in your podcast app. I'm Arlo Perez Esquivel. This is CPR News.
Support for Colorado Today comes from Credit Union of Colorado. With access to over 30,000 ATMs and a mobile app, they're dedicated to offering the services of a big bank with a heart. Learn more at honestlygood.org.
Support for Colorado Today comes from Safeway, where you can shop online and get easy delivery or free pickup. Get the same prices, deals, and rewards as in-store. Shop the weekly ad, clip deals, and earn points at Safeway.com or in the Safeway app.